just going to give you a little study on a character in U.S. history, and that may or may not have you have been told the truth about, and we'll get to that later, hopefully toward the end, if I get everything situated here. But I'm not the smartest. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, as they say. But in this area, in the last several years, I have been through more than 60 books. So you can disagree with me, but you're wrong. And there's not a lot of things that I'm absolute sure on, but this subject I am, and it's not my fault you were misled as a child. But I want to talk to you. We'll just read one verse. It has to do with something else in a minute. It's in John 17. If you want to go ahead and turn there. I want to talk to you about the real George Washington. Almost every poll taken about who the greatest president was, George Washington is almost always at the top of the list. And I'm not saying that he wasn't, okay? And I'm by no means am I out to demean the man or anything like that. He did play a major role in the freedoms that we have today. It is said that he was a military leader, and there are heroic tales of bravery that he showed. I'm not knocking that, or I'm not trying to dismiss that, or say that wasn't true at all. He was a man that was highly exalted, and he was highly revered by the people of his day. It is said that he did not even want to be president, and that reason alone, the people said that's why you must be the president, because you do not want it. He would step down after 2 terms. Before there was a law against only serving 2 terms, as a precedent for presidents, down the line. And it wasn't until that they passed the law he could only serve 2 terms. He is lauded, along with other founding fathers, to be great Christian men. One of the most vivid images that millions of people, especially in America, have of Washington is the painting of the time that he knelt down in the snow at Valley Forge to pray. One of the most famous, it's a very iconic presidential moment when he did that. And I don't know who the guy is lurking in the background there, some sort of weirdo. But like a lot of iconic moments in presidential history, the only thing you have to fear is fear itself. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do with your country or for your country. Getting shot in the ear, things like that. So just some moments that do stand out. Some good, some bad. Kennedy's head exploding. It's a terrible thing, but it is an iconic moment when the driver shot him. But anyway, the things we know about Washington are these facts, or has history been retold or told in a way to put a godly stamp on our founding? And so we're just going to I'll ask the question and answer my own question, and because that's just how this works. One, and we'll get right off the bat, was George Washington a Christian? And so everything that I have read, even those that say he was, let me put this up because I feel like a weirdo. I'll pick this up instead. The only reliable testimony that George Washington was indeed a Christian was from his great-granddaughter, who said, I think he got baptized once. That's it. George Washington was a deist, like most of our founding fathers. They were not Christian. A deist believes in a supreme being that does not interfere with mankind. He just created it, and mankind does on its own, and God doesn't interfere. That's why in our the founding fathers and the documents, they used words like supreme being, the sovereign, the creator, the divine, because they did believe in God. They were not atheists, but they did not believe. A deist does not believe that Jesus Christ was God, like we believe, like the Bible teaches. Washington kept a personal diary, and there are 0 references to prayer, to church, or to Jesus Christ in his own personal diary, okay? So if you were going to hide it, you would think in your own personal diary, you would at least mention that from time to time. The fact reveals, as we read, or as I have read, and others have read, Washington's letters and his personal notes, it reveals a man whose life was spiritually dry, who did not have a close personal walk with Jesus Christ or God. And at the end of the Revolutionary War and the end of his presidency, he rarely attended church at all. That's fact. Now, you'd think a devout man of God, a devout Christian, as he is portrayed to be, and maybe the greatest time of need in our country, he would at least reference in his own personal stuff about I prayed to God or something like that, and it's just not in there. Now there's 0, not just him, in our founding documents. There's 0 mention of Jesus Christ. None. They were all deists. Now people have tried to rewrite that. And the fact is, the states had Jesus Christ in their constitutions. But when they came together to be able to form a more perfect union, they had to get rid of Jesus Christ because not everybody believed in Jesus Christ. So to form a government, they said, we'll just reference God, and we're going to leave Jesus out. As a matter of fact, I can't get into that. Most of our founding fathers hated Christians. And so, in John 17, verse number 1, says, these words spake Jesus, and lifted up his eyes to heaven, and said, Father, the hour is come. Glorify thy Son, that thy Son may also glorify thee. That's the only scripture we're going to read. We could read a few other ones. But do you know how you give God the glory? First, you give his Son glory. That's how you give God glory. So if we are not giving in our founding and those founding fathers, if they are not giving the Son glory, they're not giving God real glory. Wasn't, you say, or I ask for you, wasn't George Washington a man of prayer? Well, in the diary of Dr. William Watt, W-A-T-T, he was an Episcopalian bishop who served as the Continental Congress's chaplain during the Revolution and during Washington's presidency. He was also the minister at Christ Church in Philadelphia. He was also the first chaplain of the United States Senate. He said that although he had seen Washington several times in the beginning in his church, he never knelt for prayer. And you say, well, maybe that's a personal conviction, whatever. But the Episcopalian Church used what is called the Book of Common Prayer in their services. And if you've never been to one of them or a Presbyterian church, it's very much, we all say the same thing, we all do the same thing. The minister says something, they answer back. It's very what's the word I'm looking for? Like ritualistic. And so the Book of Common Prayer that they used in the church that Washington went to, so he would know about this, it directs the congregation to kneel when they pray. And even though it directs them, this Bishop Watt, says Washington never did. So, Dr. Watt also said that in his writings that many gatherings at the table, eating with Washington, he never heard Washington speak his personal opinions about religion at all. I mean, come on. If you're as a devout Christian, as they say, somebody's going to hear something, right? I mean, especially what would have been his pastor. You say, well, Washington couldn't go to church. He was the president. So what does that say about a devout Christian who took a job that he could never go to church? You say, what about this painting of Valley Forge? With everything we know about Washington, if this man, here's what people believe when they see this, that somebody took that picture. There's 0 cameras in 1777 to 1778. Somebody painted this picture who was not there. So I am suggesting this never happened. If a man would not kneel in church to pray, records show that from when he was in Valley Forge, his army was in Valley Forge, from 77 to 78, what may be in the painting, you can see in the background on the left side of the screen, he rented the house of Isaac Potts. So, why would he even go outside to pray if he could, in the freezing cold, if he could kneel? You say, what are you trying to say? I'm trying to say this didn't happen. I'm not saying Valley Forge didn't happen. I'm saying somebody later on, with everything we know and I've read about George Washington, it goes against, if you're not going to kneel in church when you're told to and it is custom to, you're not going to walk outside of the comforts of your house, a warm house, and kneel in the snow. Just saying. Now you say, well, wasn't George Washington a humble man? The fact is, this is from the History Channel. So this ain't from like books that hate America or anything like that. The History Channel, okay? George Washington, while he was president, the humble man refused to shake hands because he felt he was above that as president. Doesn't sound too humble. Again, I'm not saying that let's hate on George Washington. You understand? I'm just trying to say the history behind it may be a little bit different. He was not a Bible-thumping, Bible-believing Christian. If you walk into the U.S. Capitol today, you will see the apotheosis of Washington This is the actual image of the inside the Capitol Rotunda. And the study on this alone will make you sick as a Christian. But it is Washington up there in the middle looking down. And what is, oddly enough, this was painted, apotheosis refers to someone, a man, ascending to become God. And it's in our Capitol building. Today, it's in our Capitol building. It was finished at the end of the Civil War, where America said, our president has become God in 1865. You know what else happened in 1865, not long after? Maybe, just maybe, God said, I'll show you, America. I'm going to kill the president you have now. And it was Abraham Lincoln. And I'm not saying that's what God did. I'm just saying, little coincidence there. You say, even this, what about the story of the cherry tree? You ever Washington chop down cherry trees? That story came from a part-time preacher, full-time author. That should be switched. By the name of Parson Weems. It's not Reams, it's Weems. He first penned this story down in his biography of George Washington, who never met the man and never spoke to the man. Again, I'm not saying, I believe he did chop down a cherry tree more than I believe he knelt and prayed. You can get a close-up of this. You'll see this is Washington here right in the middle. I'm too fat to reach it. Oddly enough, surrounded by scantily clad in those days women. But he wrote, this Parson Weems wrote glowing things about Washington that would later go into history as actually happened after he didn't know him. He just wrote things. So, you say, there's a lot of stuff I could say. So you say, why would people just make this up about Washington? Why would people make this up about our founding if it wasn't true? The reason, I believe, is very simple. They had to make the people believe that God was on our side. Because no matter what you've heard, they were not people here who didn't have a country. They were citizens of Britain. They had voting rights. As a matter of fact, other countries got laws passed in Britain by sending people there, arguing their case, arguing their cause, and the colonists could have done the same thing. But they chose rebellion. Why? Well, they say, oh goodness, I'm not going to be able to get all this. They say taxation without representation. They had representation. That's a lie. They had representation in England. Like, that's a lie. Great stories that you've heard in the past are just not true. Court documents show that the Boston Massacre, where the Boston or the Redcoats massacred people. Now, I don't know what you think when you think of massacre, but I'm thinking 30, 40, 50, 60. There were 5. And court documents show that one soldier, standing guard at the Commons House, was attacked by revolutionist mob, and he was defending himself. Like, that's what documents show. throwing the tea into the Boston Harbor was a terrorist act. They were vandalizing property. It wasn't even theirs. I've never heard that. That's because we get our information from who? The government. In textbooks. Or people that have got their information from government and textbooks. No, I'm not saying America was bad and let's tear it all apart. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying let's at least be truthful about it. Research on your own, the Golden Triangle, where America took molasses to the Caribbean and traded it for slaves. Why? Because America ruined the farmland the Indians had by planting tobacco in it. So they used the molasses. Those people went to another country, traded the molasses, made whiskey and rum out of it, and then America took that back. And how did they pay the Indians? Still today, most Indians are drunkards. And it all stems from that. I could just go on and on and on. So that's why sometimes it feels like, even my own self, it feels like I'm anti-America. When America is anti-God, I am anti-America. When you're anti-God, I'm anti-you. It doesn't matter who it is, what it is. None of that stuff matters. And because the world lumps a bunch of people in with so-called Christians, we get a real mix of what a Christian is. There were Bible believers in those days. People who believed the Bible, who believed right. And our governments whipped them, put them in jail, and even killed them. We watched the story of Obadiah Holmes. There's so many stories like him. Our government said, the government of this Christian nation said, you have to baptize your babies. And Obadiah Holmes said, no, I'm not doing that. That's not what the Bible says. And they whipped him for it. That's part of what you don't hear about our, and again, we're not burning the flag or anything like that. I don't want to live anywhere else. I love living in America. I love the freedoms that we have. Those men who wasn't Christian still fought and bled and died so we could have freedom, just like people who now are not. We have Muslims fighting for our freedom. I'm thankful for them. 90%, so how do you get your information? Why do you know what you've read is true? One, the people that I've read after, the things I've studied, they have no agenda. They're just going, studying, reading for themselves, documents and diaries and things like that. And most people get their information from government textbooks in school. And most people who believe that this America is 90% of them who believe the Christian, holy founding of America, 90% of them are post-millennialists, and they believe that America was going to usher in, and they believe this about Washington. He was going to usher in an age of peace. This new kingdom was going to do that. Well, it's been far from peace. It's far from the peaceful thing that we read about, and over and over and over, and books and documents and letters that our founders wrote over and over and over. America, this new land, was called the New Israel. Over and over and over. That is anti-Bible. You say, my gosh, that just makes me mad. It makes me mad too. It makes me mad somebody done lied to me. I still think America's great as far as a place to live. I don't want to go nowhere else. I'm thankful. And there were some good men. And there were the right kind of Christians. There were Bible believers. But like I've said before, just because Christians are inside of a Walmart don't make Walmart a Christian business. You know what I mean? And so the problem is, when I first looking at this, I pushed back against it. And the reason why we find so much pushback against literal facts is we've been brainwashed to love our country more than we love our God. You say, well, there's so many God and Country Sundays going on this morning. And they will laud America as this beacon of light. And it's just not. Not for real truth. It's not. And so, the fact is that America is flawed. You could look throughout history, the way they treated the Indians. Theodore Roosevelt called them savages. Literally, well, didn't we give them? Yeah, we brought them some things, including syphilis. And we kept driving them west, so we could have our land. We took the land from them. It's no different than nations, than Russia trying to take over Ukraine today. It wasn't ours. We took it. And people want to tell the story of Thanksgiving as, yeah, everything was peaceful and hunky-dory. And I'm just saying, it's not, maybe not what you have, definitely not what I learned in school. I just want to keep going, but I'm not. I'm already went 7 minutes over. I feel like, Father, I sure do thank you, Lord, for your blessings. I ask, Father, that you would help us. Lord, that we would love our country, but we would put it in right perspective, and that we are now citizens of another country. We are a holy, peculiar people, part of the bride of Christ before anything else. I pray, Lord, that you would bless the Sunday school and the preaching here in just a little bit.